Hello. So we're talking about astral councils. And this is a topic that has been coming up off and on for several months. And I have to put a disclaimer out there before we get into it, that this is in part inspired because of this rising echo chamber. We'll put it like that. There's a rising kind of echo chamber around receiving information specifically from the Galactic Federation Council. And I have I have a complicated soul history with that council, and so I do have a little bit of inherent bias in regards to that council. No tea, no shade if you channel them or you work with them or you like that content. The main goal of this video is to encourage you and the general public to broaden your horizons and kind of complexify your perception of the concept of astral councils, and to hopefully spark some inspiration for the many of you who are meant to be engaging with your own councils or councils tied to totally different concepts and regions, that there just hasn't been enough discussion and exposure to the concept for you to kind of activate the brain waves that you need to reconnect with them. So it's my hope that this will kind of help with that process, challenge and push your perspective out a little bit. And so I am going to be referencing some notes and some excerpts, so you'll see me kind of glancing over. This comes from a 13-page PDF that I shared in my School of Primordiality membership, which you're more than welcome to come and join. We're in a very, very important container right now, the early enrollment season, and so you can come join now and get access to the open Q&A aspect of the container and ask questions and have more interactive group or group style learning about the subjects, or to get into any of my more advanced courses coming in the near future. You will need a lot of this prerequisite information from this container regardless, and so this is a really good time to get in and have that opportunity and be able to ask questions and engage with the content while this container is open, before I release it just as digital course downloads and digital material downloads. And this is also where I am I'm in the process of anchoring the interdimensional exchange program between Ipthos Earth and the Primordiality. It will involve other groups and places as time progresses, but these are kind of the founding regions that this exchange program is being anchored through. And I've been setting up the portals and the introductory materials and doing some deep dives into Ipthos as a place and the people, and they are from the they're concurrent parallel living species and planet over in Andromeda, in the Andromeda galaxy specifically. And so I have lots of really, if this is kind of if you love this, if you like the idea of getting into the nitty-gritty about a topic like astral councils and going in, breaking down all the different facets and aspects and possibilities within that, and you like to nerd out about cosmic, macrocosmic, multidimensional topics like this, then that's, follow the description box and, come find me. I'll be so excited to have you join. And so let's talk about the actual concept of astral councils. Now, first and foremost, before I get into all of the exciting stuff about the more external based astral councils that you can engage with, it must be said that the most essential council or councils that you should be working with, first and foremost, are connected to your own soul expression. And so you can have your parts of self council that will grow and shift and evolve with different parts of yourself, the different parts of yourself that you most need to be in communion and contact with. And you can be in contact with your ancestral council, tied to your DNA and tied to your genealogy, and sometimes fast as like adoption, and more close bonds tied to this physical vessel, and the incarnations tied to Earth. You can connect with your council that is your soul family council, and you can have ambassadors and guides connected to your soul family across lived incarnations, and significant friends, colleagues, partners, children, just different types of beings that you've interacted with and been family with across soul incarnations. That gets into like truly innumerable quantities of beings, even more so than the concept of trying to count all of your ancestors. So you're going to deal with more so ambassadors and such, or different beings in that group that are contracted to be super important for you to connect with, as a possibility for you to connect with in this incarnation. And you can work with that through the records. And there's also, just in general, you have a contracted spirit team or spirit guide, which can be envisioned as a council as well. And these can be a more varied amount of beings. I have, at this moment, I have documented somewhere between 60 and 70 spirit team council members on mine. And these include ancestor ambassadors and advisors, and more specialized individuals tied to my soul family, that kind of vibe. And then it also I have like jellyfish spirit guide. I also have like teacher friend, technically, more or less counts as a spirit guide for me, just because I work with them so closely. Teacher friend, or Mahawi Alvam, who is is the primary teacher and ambassador and facilitator on the Ipthos side of the exchange program that we're setting up. That's what I'm talking about. And so I also have soul surgeons and beings like that, and energy weaver specialists and advisors, and the ones who trained me in my energy weaving and macrocosmic scale stuff, the primordial soul framework, all those kind of things, mechanics. So I have all my specialists on my team, so those kind of beings. So you could very happily, very joyfully spend the rest of your incarnation having a very fulfilled and very interactive and very evolutionarily expansive relationship with councils that are just purely tied like to your own soul embodiment, because you are so complex and magical and expansive. And then what you can also do is what you should do, I highly encourage it, is to sit down in meditation and ask to be shown any councils across all astral, etheric, etc., dimensions, realms, densities, blah, 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 blah. Put it in your own words. That any councils where you have a part of your soul expression exists on that council or works with that council, and that would be most in harmony and alignment and most relevant to your current life experience for you to explore and be in connection with. And it might hit right away. or it might take several times to kind of revisit this idea, and kind of you're kind of building the energetic conduits and the connections for you to be able to access and reconnect and to develop, especially like more of a two-way connection with that kind of energy. So if it's something that feels really inspiring, and like this topic just really excites you and lights you up, when you see the idea of councils coming up on social media and across X, Y, and Z, then it might be something that is in soul alignment with you to explore in this lifetime. And so I highly encourage exploring that. And we can talk more about that in my different groups that I have through Macro Symposium. Or you can drop a comment below this on YouTube if you would like. And if it's in alignment and works out energetically, I can revisit it in a future video. So now let's talk about a little bit more of the different categories of councils from a macrocosmic view. So this is all of the possibilities across totality. And so I'm a macrocosmic specialist in my energy weaving training, in my personal soul lineage background, and in my present authenticity expression. I'm very much a macrocosmic specialist, and so I tap into like the totality, the big picture, the most expansive view of all that exists across all time, space, and dimension, etc. And so I will always be the one that kind of challenges and pushes you to look at things with more nuance and complexity, because in order to look at these big picture views, you have to deconstruct a lot of your human rules and the human programming that you have received in this incarnation, and to be pushed to perceive things in a way that isn't tied to this body, and then you have to draw that back into human language and translation. So it's an activation just listening to these concepts, even if you don't totally understand what I'm talking about, I promise. And so there's some main categories for grouping the energetic types of councils, because in general a council is I probably have a definition here that sounds a little bit more cleaned up, but you will just have to check the document in the School of Primordiality if you would like to get some of that extra context in a more structured format. But inherently a council is a group of specialists, ambassadors, leaders, etc. Around a certain topic, group, region, etc. That helps to redistribute directives and plans and problem solving and information exchange throughout a broader region, usually addresses issues across that region or topic or issue or energetic that they are dealing with. And so these are vague terms because we're looking at the possibility of anything across whatever. And so some of the people that are within the councils, the beings, are going to be these leaders and specialists or whatever. But the different categories can run through these. This is kind of how I have it broken down as some of the main categories of what an astral council can be based around, what their focus can be on, what their grouping or category or whatever, can be. You get it. So they can fall under being a council of a dimensional region, a density region, a devolution region. And these are some of the very, very broad, big picture breakdowns of totality. So they're going to deal with very broad regional energetic concepts, usually around the stabilization, maintenance, and evolution of the more complex inner workings of the energetics, the inner mechanisms, and the energetic flow within these unfathomably complex constructs. Similarly, you can have councils related to frequency, and so this gets into similar realms as the dimensions, densities, and devolutions. We can also have councils in cosmic elements, and so obviously you can have councils related to flame, breath, or air, those kind of ones that are more human specific, but this also applies to elemental constructs that exist across all of totality, across different universes with different rules and different physics and different capacities. And again, I break down these different categories in different paragraphs in the document over at my thing, but if you really want to get into it. You can also have councils relating to macrocosmic soul mechanisms. And I'm going to give you an example of some of these other councils at the end. But just so you can better understand them, these are some of the categories for when you maybe go and pursue some astral council experiences that are tied to your own experience. It's helpful to have these different categories in mind to help you conceptualize and redirect and open your mind to these different ways that these councils can exist. Councils that this is very specific to souls that have architect or soul surgeon lineage, but there can be councils associated with macrocosmic soul mechanisms. Soul mechanism work is what I do. It's a different type of system for structuring and looking at the construction of a soul body, which is then tweaked and changed to fit into a human energetic body system. And so you can also, these macrocosmic soul mechanisms, soul mechanisms in general, there's correlations between the soul body for a micro soul of an individuation in an individual incarnation, like me here, you right there. And then there's also the soul body like a planet, which is a multi-consciousness macrocosmic soul body structure. And then you can also expand it out further to our solar system. And so these same kind of systems can be replicated and shifted and evolved within these different constructs. For the galaxy, the Milky Way has a soul body construction. Our universe has a soul body construction. The totality has a soul body construction. And then it links back down to the individuation. And so these different mechanisms within these soul body constructions can have their own associations of councils. And these tend to be, some of these categories can shift one way more than the other. So there can be, there's specific frequency compilations and dimensional compositions that tend towards one mechanism versus another. But there can be separate councils that are kind of overlapping and maybe have some council members that exist across multiple that are in a similar type of scope. But they usually have different specializations and they interact with a different energetic group of soul beings. And so you can also have councils related to soul roles. So these tend to be like elders, scholars, specialists again, that, what are some of the examples I have? Oh yeah, they can, like architects have their own types of councils. Soul surgeons is another common one. Corruptors is a necessary facet of totality. So there can be corruptor soul roles, spirit guide soul roles, Grim Reaper type soul roles, that type of idea. Terraformers, it can get really complex and nuanced. Grid workers, yeah, all that kind of stuff. Species ambassadors, very important, very relevant. There's a lot of people that do connect with different species ambassadors. And so we're going to probably see that be more common here on Earth. And then there's a lot of you who are species ambassadors for Earth, and maybe meant to relay information back and forth between Earth and these other regions. And so they tend to be ambassadors, reporters, cultural exchange facilitators between regions. And this is really common for especially more 3 to 5 dimension, we can kind of say, regions, that kind of grouping and category. It's really common to have species ambassadors around that, especially when you get to the more tangible regions where you have interregional exchange. So very, very, very common, very popular, really fun. A lot of people who have affinities to certain regions like Arcturus, Andromeda, etc., they tend to be somewhere in the category of species ambassadors. Species ambassadors councils, there can be very established, specific council elders or leaders, and then they can also have, a council can be, there can be a lot of different groupings, and so there's usually like a core council group and an auxiliary council group, and then they tend to have ambassadors, maybe like the soul surgeon councils tend to have like medic offshoots, and sometimes there's enforcer offshoots. So there can be data analyst offshoots. So there can be these different councils can start rippling out and becoming these super complex and super wide scale, numerous kind of entities unto themselves. So ambassadors can be part of councils. You can also be a specific ambassador council, or you can just be an ambassador within another council. I hope that wasn't too confusing. There can also be councils for cosmic systems, and agenda-based councils. So these kind of get into your more miscellaneous roles and functions, and their purpose for being there is a little bit more nuanced or specialized or local to a very specific region. I would say the Galactic Federation can kind of fall under this kind of category. They tend to be a little bit more agenda-based and specific to this cosmic system, this local cosmic neighborhood. And so they tend to be, more focused on neighborhood politics, and they tend to have more, not always, they can lean towards having more self-appointed leadership, and they're more likely, the councils are more likely to be tied to an incarnational experience, whereas some councils, you kind of exist concurrently at all times. You kind of ascend or elevate and kind of create this almost permanent fixture and replica of your soul body that exists as this council leader and maintains this role across all time and dimension. And then you can have a role like being a president or being a member of the UN on Earth, where you're essentially on a council, or you're on this specific system or role for the duration of this incarnation, and then you're not a council member anymore. So there's also that distinction and differentiation in council membership and how that exists, and there can be more nuance to that even beyond that. So now I wanted to list out some different types of councils, and these are councils that I tend to associate with. There are more that I work with, but this is a pretty accessible group of councils. And there are also councils that are a little bit more relevant to Earth and Earth experience. We're not all macrocosmic specialists. All the talking. Some of the councils that I have in this document, I maybe won't do all of them because that's several more pages to go. But I do want to list a few to kind of spark your inspiration a little further. So there's the Aluminium Council, ALMINEUM. This is an elder council of elements. And so there's aluminium councils that exist across multiple constructs and regions. There's the primordial aluminium. There's the aluminium for this universe. And so this universe will tend to deal with the elements that are tied to the physics and the rules of this universe. And so, for example, the aluminium as a whole has the elders that are the more originate elements, and then you can have sub-councils that focus on the more specific elements that break down from that. And so you can also have, there's also, separate councils that are specific to one singular element, and then the aluminium councils tend to be ambassadors and elders of each of those sub-councils that make up the full elemental scope of each universe. So you'll have an aluminium for each anchor universe specifically, and then there's the primordial aluminium. And so for this universe, you of course have the main elements, which how they construct them in the aluminium is land, breath, flow, and flame for earth, air, water, and fire. But those are just the four main ones. So the Aluminium Council can be really valuable to tap into, especially maybe you're curious about finding out more information about the wildfires going on, or hurricane season, or something going on with natural disaster here on Earth. The Aluminium Council can give really valuable insight onto that facet. Excuse me so much. There's the Council of Universes. You'll usually, not always, you'll usually end up meeting with ambassadors of that when you make contact with them, if you're not on them. But the Council of Universes is, I've had to deal with them because of my macrocosmic work, and for other various reasons. But the Council of Universes is specifically a council of specialists and leaders and source seed keepers and these other roles that are very specific to the governing of universes as a whole and to the interrelational interaction between anchor universes in particular, and how they interact, and how the politics and the energetic interaction between universe systems. Fiesta, do you have anything particular that you would like to say, or do you just want to kind of be part of the vibe? Similarly, there's also the council for each anchor universe. So the anchor universe that Earth is most connected to is the literally I've always referred to it as the universe of Nu, and that's because this is a developing anchor universe, and there's a lot of details and mechanics and nuance to that, which is being touched on in the current season of School of Primordiality, but I'll be really digging into more next season in School of Primordiality around the equinox, sometime around between March and April, and when we'll be talking about the primordial reset. So keep that in mind. But you can check in with the council for this anchor universe, and that can be really helpful. And they tend to know a lot of information first before someone like the more localized councils would know about information. But then the councils around more localized regions tend to know more specialized and region-specific context to it, of course. There's also the Tavia Ashura Council, which can be relevant to look into. There's also the Tavia Ashura Council is a mechanism council around the Triple Ouroboros system here on Earth. So we have a specific council for that version of the system. We have some different rules around here for the mechanics of that system, but it's very tied to gateway and portal energetics, and so they can be helpful to tap into about what's happening with the evolution of Earth as it relates to it being a gateway and portal system. And so it can be helpful for looking at what is still needing to be evolved or refined or shifted, etc., for us to develop more maybe capacities for interdimensional communication and travel and portal capacities. I'm gonna skip a few. There's architect councils in general for all types of specific groupings. Tons of them. They tend to have the master architect, and that sounds, it's really not hierarchical at all, but it's really just because they are the primordial or the initiator of that energetic construct that all of the other architects are then born or specialized and evolved into, or took up the incarnational temporary role for, etc., underneath that kind of umbrella of energetics. So you can have them for things like the energetic construct of rhythm, the energetic construct of time, the energetic construct of song, all these kind of primordial elements. So they're also tied to the primordial aluminium. Yeah. Soul surging councils, transition councils. In part, transition councils can be some of the councils tied to the process when you pass into your next incarnation, and they can help you with that process. University of Universes Council. This is definitely an Earth translation of the council, but this is associated with the interdimensional exchange program that I'm starting here on Earth, tied to the School of Primordiality, and it is the Ipthos University of Ashion is what we're exchanging with, but they are already under the umbrella. They already have Maui Elram is an ambassador between the University of Universes and that offshoot, and I have soul lineage connections to the University of Universes. So, and I have been teaching classes over in the University of Ashion and a little bit in the University of Universes over the last few years, specifically in this incarnation, about what's happening here on Earth and some of the macrocosmic changes because of my specialist kind of role. And so we are working on, in the next decade or so, getting Earth as an established outpost for the University of Universes, which would mean that we would need established ambassadors to relay with the University of Universes. So, lots shifting and changing. These are just some examples to kind of spark your intrigue. The biggest thing is to just keep in mind discernment with all of this, and to keep in mind that there's always a little bit of lie sprinkled into the most well-meaning truth. Anything that I'm sharing as well, anything that your favorite spiritualists are sharing, anything that you are channeling and integrating, because you can only put language to things to the best of your ability, and so just keep that in mind, that there's always a need for discernment, and to keep in mind that you are a sovereign and very intelligent and evolved soul, and that when you're engaging with these councils and these beings and all of these possibilities arising about interdimensional communication, just keep in mind that they are not inherently better than you, they don't inherently know better than you, and that they can have extremely valuable information and insight, and sometimes maybe they do have knowledge that is more expansive, more complex or nuanced than what you are capable of perceiving, but that you have your own very specialized, important intelligence and knowledge and understanding of the world, and that it's very important to trust your gut and trust your instinct at all time when engaging with these different beings and these different councils and this different knowledge through other channelers, etc. And to one of the easiest ways to ensure that you don't get trapped into an echo chamber of knowledge is to diversify the types of beings that you are receiving information from. Rather you're a channeler yourself, or rather you enjoy engaging with other channelers and communicators, etc. across social media. Keep in mind that it's really helpful to diversify, where you're getting that information from, and to not be just getting information from a specific one council over and over again, or one type of person, or one type of being, or one type of opinion, and that when you start kind of overlapping all of the different perceptions, that's when you start getting a clear picture of the truth as you need to understand it. So check the description box for all the links to come explore where all my information, all of my offerings. Stay tuned for the next video. I hope this was helpful. Let me know what was most impactful or inspiring, or what kind of made you feel the most excited. Let me know what questions popped into your head while watching this, and have a wonderful rest of your day. Happy exploring the macrocosm.